Ministry of Finance Incorporated's Real Estate Investment Fund, MREIF, is a 250 billion naira project introduced by the federal government with the goal of promoting economic growth through the housing and construction industries. They're looking at affordable housing. They also want to incentivize developers with a public-private partnership, and they're also talking about possible 25-year mortgages. So is this going to work? Do we need more money? Who better to discuss the real estate sector than Ayo Ibaru, the CEO of Northcourt Real Estate, that blesses us with, frankly, some of the best reporting we've seen on real estate sector for the African region. Ayo, Happy New Year. Good to see you.
Year.
Thanks for joining us.
Love what you do with the hair.
Thank you, sir. So look, this is something we've had you on to talk about before. I don't know, 250 billion across 36 states. Maybe it's initial funding or something, but 6-point-something billion per state. How do you think this is meant to work in your idea?
So it takes a lot to solve the housing problem in Nigeria, considering how onerous it's been for a while. So it's good to see that MOFI is trying to, put in their own quota, 250 billion. Considering that the HUD's budget, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development's budget proposed for 2025 is circa 100 billion, 11.5 billion of which is actually going to housing pretty much for 20,000 units.
Yeah.
It's good to see that 250 billion has been made available, but it can be more because of the size of the problem we're trying to solve. Now, what do? We have two examples I can easily mention here. You have Kagamas, founded in 1986 in Malaysia. And what they've done over the years is work with the capital markets in their country. And they've raised, as of December 2023, $91 billion. US dollars.
Yep.
So they've been able to develop housing. They've been able to intervene at various stages in the housing purchase process. You also have the HDFC, that's in India. Now, they are 1977 founded thereabout, and they have even merged with a bank, and they are in Q1 2025. Even though their total value right now is $40 billion, they are going to raise funding for affordable housing to the tune of $1 billion. And they've already gotten about 150 million of that from the good people at the IFC. Now, this is seed funding as far as the industry is concerned, the 250 billion MOFI is talking about. So what they have to do now is find a way of amplifying that, which is working with the capital market, either through green-linked or sustainability bond raises, or Sukuk, the bond system, which is what Malaysia did. And that's where we can start to have a conversation. Now, taking this around 36 states, I'm not entirely sure the problem is mathematical. It's really more of where the demand is and where the projects are the most viable, because what you want to do is meet the need where it's the most, so where you have the most people and where the deficits are the highest. And then once you can solve the congestion in those states, so that will be places like Lagos, places like Kaduna, Kano, Enugu, you can now start to see the demand spread out into second tier and third tier cities. So you have to commend the effort, even though I would have wanted a bit more transparency. It's the same articles, whichever website you check, the MOFI website, as beautiful as it is, doesn't have the documentation that one would have preferred. And aside comments and, the minister said this and the CEO said that, it would be good to have something along the lines of what we're working towards, what the targets are, and what we're trying to achieve. Again, I have to go back to the budget proposal by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. They did say there that, look, we're going to try to throw 11.5 billion naira at 22,000 housing units. You can easily cut that 6 ways to Sunday and say it's not enough, it's insufficient, and so on and so forth. By the end of the day, they did put out a figure, and we can start to track that. And that's on the back of another 30 billion that was put in housing in the previous budget. So it's something you can track, it's something you can critique, and you can suggest ways forward. But MOFI would probably at some point need to share a bit more information, so we have an idea of what we're working with.
Perfect. The affordable housing, I've asked you about this in the past. When people think about affordable, when we say affordable housing, it's usually about the purchase of the home there's also the maintenance and everything. But is that possible right now with in this high inflationary environment that we're in?
It's doable, but it's difficult, and the reason is you now have to do more work at the design stage, and then of course when you're planning the facility management services, because that is what will follow the developed house throughout its entire life cycle. The thing about affordable housing is it doesn't mean that the house has to be badly built or low quality. It just has to be built in a way that you don't have to expend too much in terms of resources, so that the eventual offloading price into the market or into the scheme that supports the project is something at the level of the household, either direct or amplified through financing moves. So that's how it sits in my head anyway.
Okay, they say they want to incentivize developers. You deal with developers, you talk about them in your reports. I know you've talked about the cost of building homes and is there a scenario where you can get all your building materials within Nigeria? And what do you make of this incentivizing of developers? What does that mean to you at all?
I mean, the proposed tax reform does have quite a bit for developers to look forward to.
Okay.
But in the short term, manufacturing a lot of the construction materials that we bring into the country will be expensive. So it's probably a mid-term to a long-term strategy, which is what at some point we have to do if we need to get the entire demand met as far as housing is concerned. And the other thing is, interestingly, it's cheaper on quite a number of levels to import from our Asian manufacturers into Nigeria now. When you look at the things that we do manufacture in Nigeria, in this case cement, you find that there was an announcement late last year. Huaxin bought, was it 86% of Lafarge Holcim for about $1 billion. And if you look at their performance for year ended 2023, 2024, they did $548 million in annual profits, and their main product is cement. Now, if the market works as it should work, then we can expect cement prices to reduce somewhat, assuming Huaxin brings in their full power into the market, and then of course Dangote and Lafarge and Bua step up to the plate to see, okay, how can we ensure that we remain competitive? Because those prices can go down as far as the global markets are concerned.
Okay, now when it comes to affordable housing, affordable food, whatever, do you think it makes more sense to just, at a macro view, for government to just try to address inflation in general? And if you can get that down, then everything else follows through the different sectors of the economy.
Oh yes, it does make sense, and the reason is, depending on the lens you are using to look at the housing problem, you can take the supply dimension or the demand dimension. The question you ask is more towards the corner of demand. Effective demand is difficult, even at an entry level, when the economic variables look the way they look now. Inflationary pressures are high. Every once in a while it changes its mask and wears the stagflation mask, then removes that, and then wears the galloping inflation mask, then removes that. And you find that even paying rents are now increasingly challenging in core cities.
Goodness. Yeah.
Yes, they're increasingly. Okay, I will. Now, this is national TV, and I like to be positive when I'm here.
The rent is too high. Wasn't that a song or something, a campaign slogan from some guy in?
So I would only be responding because you said it. Now, most landlords have tried their best not to increase their rent over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
I think this year they are left with no other choice. Also, when you look at those looking to sell their homes, especially as you go outside the core areas of most cities, the CBDs, you find increases as high as 40% in terms of the sale value of homes. And remember, these are people who can afford to keep those houses empty for as long as they deem fit. So I'm sure as we begin to round this up, I will take us maybe a bit into some detail as to what the outlook is for 2025, but that's really how the market is looking from a renter's perspective at the residential level.
Thanks, Ayo. Another thing I've always loved picking your brain on is mortgages. Now, I know that they are saying, I think it was the Minister of Finance, whoever was representing him, they are looking at 25-year mortgages. But, you know, or maybe, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you've challenged me on comparing to the West, where they have 15, 25, 30, and so on and so forth. But what's the issue with trying to get long-term financing for home ownership in Nigeria?
It's a funding problem.
Funding.
So 25 years, as good as it sounds, can be better. In the case of the Asian organization, because I knew this Western thing will come up, so I went.
Trust me.
I went towards the East. They have 35 to 40-year mortgages because they understand that when families and individuals are able to, in a sense, solve the housing problem, they are more able to contribute to the overall economy, which moves GDP up, which improves the conditions for borrowing, which improves the amount of money we can get and the rates at which we get them, and you reduce all manner of civil disturbances because the housing question has been answered. So it's something that we can deal with, and with a few persons I have spoken to at the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development and what MOFI is doing, they are saying all the right things. I have to hand it to them, but we have to see boots on the ground, we have to see equipment move to site, and we have to get to a point where we are honest with ourselves as regards how many housing units are produced on a quarterly basis at least. Because, you know, in some years, as a country, that's at the government level, we didn't do up to 10,000 units in some years. And this is a country that officially you have annual population rates going up by 2.6 to 3.2%, depending on what side of the bed the IMF decides to wake up, or World Bank and give us these rates. So it's a funding problem, but again, it's a problem that has been overcome by many nations. And if we're able to channel the capital markets and then from there attract international investment and then deploy as advertised, we can start to see the mortgage rates improve, and then also alternative methods for housing development and, of course, housing purchase.
Great. I want to ask you if you are seeing enough job growth in the real estate sector. We have the top 10 sectors, sectors contributing to GDP. I think it was for the last Q3 of 2024. And there you guys are in 5th place, real estate at 5.43% after crop production, trade, telcos, and crude petroleum and natural gas. So what's the potential of the sector as a job creator? What are you seeing?
You know, it's amazing when you compare globally the amount of meat we leave on the table regarding job creation from real estate markets. So, for example, your average apartment will, depending on the amount of technology in the system and so on and so forth, and automation, will create anything from 20 to 24 jobs, one apartment. And that's from pre-construction, construction, and then ongoing maintenance. Now, over the life cycle of that apartment, be it 40 years, be it 50 years, you're looking at anything from 80 to 100 jobs, and that's on one apartment. Wow. So let's go back again to our Ministry of Housing and Urban Development budget. 22,000 housing units times 25, right? By the time you multiply that and then you add all the other, maybe more planning and preparation and intellectual aspects. You know, you're in the office, you're creating the reports, you're doing the research, you're not on site mixing cement and so on and so forth. You find that the potentials are huge, and it's something that we see when you look at the leader on that chart you showed us, which is agriculture, right? So it has significant potentials, and you know, once you have job growth, it has a multiplier effect on the overall economy.
Ayo, we're out of time, but I've looked. This is an excuse to actually bring you back again for your outlook for 2025. Time flies when you're having fun and enjoying, because you always give such great insights. So I'm going to hold off on the outlook. We're going to bring you back because there's so much to discuss in real estate. I'm asking you international television. Will you come back?
How do they do it now? Thinking from you.
Ayo Ibaru, CEO, Northcourt Real Estate. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll have you back for your outlook and plenty more ahead. Thank you so much for your time.